Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. It's been a while since I've come on and done a Daybell update, but there is stuff to update you on. And so I wanted to cut in here just for a minute and let you know of some new filings that have been posted. They've gone up over the past week or so, I'd say. Just kind of a recap of what we know. Some bigger things, some news elements coming out of these filings. As we get ready for the trial. You know, the trial is scheduled to begin less than 3 months, if you can believe it. Finally, the trial will be happening. It was actually 3 years ago this month that Eric Grossarth and I went to Hawaii and met Chad and Lori for the first time. It's crazy to see what has happened over the past 3 years, and in some cases what has not happened, as in the fact that we're still dealing with this case. So let me run through this with you real quick, what's in the documents. The first document we have is called a notice of alibi. And here we have, for the first time on the record, Lori saying where she was the night her kids died. I'm going to quote directly from the court document written by Jim Archibald, her attorney. Lori Vallow was in her own apartment in Rexburg, Idaho, when J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan died in the apartment of Alex Cox in Rexburg, Idaho. Defendant was with Melanie Gibb, David Warwick, and or Chad Daybell. So her attorney is saying Lori was in her apartment and the kids didn't die there. They died in Alex's apartment. And one would assume that after that, the bodies were then taken to Chad's property. That's just an assumption. It doesn't say that in the court documents. But the court document goes on to say Lori Vallow was in Hawaii when Tammy Daybell died at the home of Chad Daybell in Salem, Idaho. Defendant was with Melanie Boudreau and or Audrey Baratario. So that's the big development out of the notice of alibi. They're saying Lori wasn't there. The kids were killed in Alex's apartment, or they died in Alex's apartment. And we'll see what happens with that. Okay, the next thing that happened is Lori wants to meet with Chad in person or talk on the phone. Her attorney has filed a motion to have strategy sessions. Let me read to you from the court document. With settlement proposals, mediation, motions, and trial fast approaching, Lori and Chad would like to be able to talk to each other in person and on the phone about their options, Archibald wrote. He noted that they were married November 5th of 2019. She was arrested the following February of 2020. They've spoken on the phone multiple times before Chad was arrested on recorded calls. But once he was arrested on June 9th, they have only talked to each other one other time. That was on an arranged call last July with Chad, Lori, and their attorneys. And that call was not recorded, but it was approved by the sheriff and the prosecutor. So we don't know what happened on that call last July. But now they're saying Lori and Chad need to talk again. They need to get together again and chat. The attorneys will not record the conversations and will not use the conversations as evidence. The conversations can be deemed as for settlement purposes only. So what does that tell us? There may be talk of a settlement here. There may be talk of a plea agreement between the prosecutors and Chad and Lori, both of them, whatever it is. Maybe they come up with a group plea agreement so that this doesn't even go to trial. Or one might be pressuring the other to take a plea agreement. They obviously want to get together and communicate, try to possibly work something out. If all else, find out what their stories are for before the trial, what it's going to be. But they have only talked to each other one time, according to these court documents, since Chad was arrested in June of 2020. That's the other big development. There's a few more. John Pryor, Chad's attorney, wants the trial pushed off until April of 2024. So a whole other year. He says there's a ton of evidence he still needs, that the deadlines are fast approaching. He's not ready for the trial, which begins in April. So he's asking the judge in a fairly lengthy 18-page motion to continue to push the trial back. And also, Lori's attorneys have filed some motions saying that the death penalty is should be thrown out in her case. Basically, in Idaho, when it's a death penalty case, you have to be very narrow. It has to fit very narrow descriptions as to why the person should get the death penalty. And her attorneys are saying that the prosecution, it's too broad. They haven't narrowly defined why this should be a death penalty case. So all of these motions will be heard on the 19th, I believe. Yeah, like next week. So on January 19th in Fremont County, along with a motion from the prosecutors to sequester the jury. So we'll see what happens with that. So it should be a fairly lengthy day in court. The question I have for you, if you're watching, we know that the judge has banned cameras from the trial. If he allowed a live audio feed of the trial, would you listen? So write yes or no in the comments. Would you listen to the trial like daily, or are you really interested in the video? Obviously, as the media, we believe you should have the rights to watch the video, and we would push for cameras in the courtroom. But if that wasn't an option, would you listen to an audio feed of the trial as it's happening live? Let me know what you think, because we might be doing a story about that, as it gets closer. But here we are. More motions filing. There's going to be several motions, I imagine, filed between now and April when the trial begins. And as this said, there's talks maybe of a settlement, maybe of some sort of settlement. Somebody asked, what does that mean if there's a settlement? Well, if there's a settlement, obviously one or both parties would agree to plead guilty. Maybe the prosecutors take the death penalty off the table and they get life in prison instead. It reduces the chances of appeals. Because if you plead guilty, if you agree to something, then your appeals, there's less appeals. If they do go all the way to trial and they are found guilty and a jury gives them the death penalty, then they could be sitting on death row for 20, 30 years. You just don't know. So that's kind of what that means. We'll stay up to date, obviously, on it. We're about to post a written story in case you want to read through it. I've linked to all of the documents here shortly on eastidahonews.com. You can click on and go read the actual documents, see what people are saying. And then, let me know your thoughts. Would you listen if we have an audio feed? Would you go to the courthouse? Let me know that, too, in Boise, and sit for 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is. And let me know where you're from, too, if you would do that. But it's getting real. It's coming up. We're talking about jury sequestration. We're talking about potential settlements. We're talking about all of that. And we're going to try to bring you the best coverage we can with this as we try to figure out, not having a camera in there, how we can do that. The other thing I'm thinking of, would you... if I did a nightly recap of the trial, if no cameras or audio are allowed, would you watch? Would you be interested in something like that if every night I came on for 20 minutes and talked about what happened that day in court? All right. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great week, and I'll keep you updated.